Welcome back to Des Moines, Iowa. On this caucus eve, the nation's election focus is right here on this very small state. This state has a fraction of Florida's population, a fraction of its diversity, yet this is where all the candidates have been so focused, especially Governor DeSantis' candidate, for so many months. So that brings up the question, do the caucuses even matter? They are so different from the way Florida votes back home. So to answer those questions, we went to a couple of experts. They are political science reporters from the University of Iowa and from Iowa State University.
Iowans are hardy folk, but we are talking about, sub-zero temperatures and country roads that may not be fully clear.
Hardy only goes so far.
Exactly. But also, I think it's important to remember that the demographics of the Republican Party tend to be more rural and older voters. And so they might not have access to the good roadways, so they might literally be snowed in. I mean, one of the things that can happen to cars and trucks in such bitterly cold weather is that the engine block will freeze and the battery will get too cold to turn over. So there is a risk to actually go and have to participate in a meeting for a couple of hours if the temperatures are very bitterly cold and there is a significant wind chill.
People in Florida look at Iowa as a very small state, as well as a very cold state, and also a state with a fraction of the voters that bigger states like Florida have, not altogether the diversity of states like ours. Why does Iowa caucuses matter?
Well, the main reason that the Iowa caucuses matter is because we're the first in the process, and we do a pretty good job of what we're assigned in the sense of looking at the candidates. And basically what we say here is that we're not the kingmaker, but we separate the contenders from the pretenders. And so a lot of candidates that will come in that say they're running for president, sometimes they are, sometimes they're maybe looking down the road for a vice presidential slot or a cabinet slot or something like that. But we basically, being Iowa voters, basically take a hard look at these candidates and give them a chance. So somebody can come in with not a lot of name recognition, very low resources, and still go out and talk to Iowa voters, make their case. And if they catch on, then potentially their campaign can grow and they can maybe even go as far as winning the Iowa caucuses.
We see enthusiasm for a candidate is such a deciding factor. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn by saying this country has never seen an enthusiasm factor like that of former President Trump in 2016 and again this time. So might that enthusiasm factor really play a large role in those who are enthusiastic enough to overcome what they need to overcome to get to a caucus location?
So all of the candidates, I would say the three front runners, DeSantis, Haley, and Trump, are not only running against each other in the race for convention delegates, but they are also running a race against this nebulous contest of expected, right? So if Trump comes in first, but doesn't have the 20-point lead as expected, he could actually lose by winning. And similarly, if Haley and DeSantis do better than expected, even if they don't come in first, could be deemed sort of winners, even if they are not, the first place finishers.
It's momentum, it's bragging rights. To your point, the winner doesn't always go on to get the nomination. Is number one, the winner is the winner, but coming in second or third in the caucus is kind of a win for some candidates too, and might be this time.
We often talk about there being 3 tickets out of Iowa. And certainly if you win the Iowa caucuses, that's good, but it's always a matter of expectations too. So if you're expected to win, as Trump seems to be for this cycle, but if he doesn't win by that huge margin that he's been polling, if all of a sudden DeSantis or Haley manages to cut that gap in half or more, then now all of a sudden that first place win doesn't look so shiny anymore.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the very interesting and personal kind of retail politics that Iowa voters really demand to get their vote. I mean, this is not, President Trump does big rallies with hundreds of thousands of people, but Iowans really want a face-to-face conversation. They want to know who they're voting for. And I think that's really unique to Iowa as they go into the caucus process, which is a place where they debate with each other. They're pretty engaged. They know their stuff.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And one of the advantages of having Iowa continue to go first is because Iowans are used to this. They're used to the idea that they need to talk to these candidates and find out where they stand on the issues. And it gives candidates an opportunity to understand what the issues are for folks that are outside either the DC bubble or maybe their state capital bubble, if it's a governor or something of that nature.
And I've talked with some people who are really torn about who to support in the caucus because they say, who should I give momentum to?
An Iowa voter can register for a party moments before they go into that caucus room.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I wonder, you know, in a positive note, it's a very deliberative choice that they're making. In a more conspiratorial kind of thought, maybe, you know, are Democrats going to be registering as Republicans to throw the race?
How do I want to say? It's certainly not an organized effort on the part of the Iowa Democratic Party, but there might be some people who have at least shared with me privately that they are seriously thinking about doing that, in part because of their opposition to President Trump.
The caucus process is baked into the process is voters go before they cast a vote. They actually talk about the issues and the candidates and debate with each other and consider right there in real time for whom they're going to vote. And we actually met a woman who, even at this stage, feels like she's going to make the decision Monday night. Talk a little bit about the actual process. She's going to go in, she's going to debate with her fellow caucus room people, and then what?
Basically, then you have representatives of each campaign if they're there, and there are some nearly 1,700 precincts across the state. So it's a big part of the campaign building aspect to this, that you can identify a volunteer supporter in each of those precincts to speak on your candidate's behalf. And that person will give a short speech, usually about 3 minutes, and you go through all of the candidates that are doing it. And then they basically just vote, and they have little slips of paper. Sometimes it's actually a printed ballot if there are lots of candidates, and then tally them up, report them in.
And we're excited about having gone to all 99 counties.
Thinking about what comes next, because once you go from Iowa and the somewhat conservative and somewhat faith-based vote, everyone heads to New Hampshire for the don't tread on me libertarian vote.
Yep.
And what a contrast that's going to be. And I'm thinking about, you know, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who has been so focused on Iowa, both in content and in organization.
Yes, absolutely.
Someone like that, how does his game, do you expect, go to New Hampshire now? Although he's, I hear, headed to South Carolina after Iowa. But what does that mean?
Yes,
for
but
like
I think that that's a wise move on DeSantis's part, because he has really framed his campaign first on being, I'm just like Trump, but without the baggage, and then into the culture warrior. And so with the culture wars, that's definitely going to resonate with an evangelical electorate, which, as you correctly note, is less of a factor in New Hampshire than it is in Iowa. And it is certainly less of a factor than it is in South Carolina. But that should not be taken for granted. I mean, in South Carolina currently, Trump is running ahead in the polls, but you have to remember that Nikki Haley was a very popular governor and a two-term governor in South Carolina. And so, you know, she's well known